Okay, so good morning, everyone. I will be calling this full authority board meeting on Wednesday, June 20th to order at approximately 9:37. I appreciate everyone's indulgence and patience. I'd also like to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded and or live streamed. If members can please turn their mobile devices to silent or vibrate as well. Thank you so much. The adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda at this point? Looking to the board members for any additions to the agenda. Seeing none, is there a change in order of the agenda items? I'll look to Member Campion.
Thanks, Chair. I would like to move the in-camera portion of the meeting forward to just after 3.1.
Okay. Any other? Do we need a seconder for that, or no? That's I'll accept that.
I was trying to get away with it, but I do believe I need a seconder for that, Chair.
Okay. Seconded by?
No, I want to speak to it.
Okay. Well, let me get a seconder first. Member Shurton, Member Quirk.
Sorry, I understand moving it forward. I'm not sure why we're putting it after 3.1 when we have two other delegations at 3.2. So I'm not sure.
So I can answer that. And Member Campion was kind enough to pass on his concerns earlier through an email, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Member Campion. Miss Lazarus is here, and where's Shirley? Hi, Shirley. So I know she has an incredibly busy schedule, and in order to indulge her, I thought it appropriate to move her on the agenda item first, and then we can hear from the rest of our delegations.
Again, I have no problem with that, but why would we put our closed session before the other two delegations who also have busy schedules and are here in good faith? So I would amend the motion to move it till after 3.2.
It's up to the member.
Yeah, I think you'll have to deal with the amendment separately because I disagree with that.
So it's not a friendly amendment. If you'd like to put that on the floor. Okay, do you have a seconder for that? Member Beatty. So that amendment is on the floor, and for the clarity in the board, the amendment is to move the closed session items after the presentation and the delegations 3.2. Any question or comments to that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the amendment? 1, 2, 3. All opposed? 1, 2, 3. I didn't get a vote from Member Beatty. In favor of the amendment. So the amendment has been carried. Moving on then, the amendment is carried. I'll move to the approval of the agenda as amended. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Declaration of conflict of interest. Any declaration of conflict of interest? Seeing none, that moves us to the first item on the agenda, which was the whole thing that we just went through, which is presentations. At this time, I would ask Member Beatty to introduce our first guest. Member Beatty.
Thank you, members of the board and members of the public at large. About 2 years ago, I had the wonderful pleasure of getting a phone call from a lady by the name of Shirley Lazarus, a resident of Fonthill, Pelham, and had been a retired educator. Happened to know her mother. Her mother just recently passed away at the wonderful age of 103. Knew her from attendance at our church. Shirley sat down at our dining room table and presented a plan, first of all, with regard to a poem that she had created, and with regard to high regard for the maple tree and the symbolism that it provides for our country in particular, and asked for some assistance in terms of a project. Fortunately, that idea germinated in terms of that dining room table to become a school project involving planting established maple trees at a large number of schools throughout our watershed. And Shirley's poem was then transferred to a very significant art piece, a memorial plaque and so on. And it's a case where Shirley is here today basically to celebrate the end of that project. She and I are going to be making some final presentations to 3 of the schools that planted trees in Fonthill. Going to be doing that next week and so on. And it's a case where she's here to make some commentary in terms of the project and in terms of some activities that happened that made that project such a success. So Shirley, please join us at the podium.
Thank you. Can you hear me now? Thank you. Actually, Brian, my mother Molly passed away last month at the age of 104, 10 months, and 21 days. She was a beautiful woman inside and out and well respected in Font Hill, her community. I'm soon going to be 86, so I know how she felt about life. At this stage, you begin to wonder if you have had any impact at all on people you have met and things you have done. You really consider this a lot. Now, it just so happens that last year, I was part of a group of people digging holes and planting trees on Merrittville Highway, if you recall. And I happened to meet someone of you there who made a huge impact on my life. I'm going to read to you my acknowledgement page, if you would be so kind as to listen. I decided, as I enjoy poetry, to write a book about my poems. In verse, I converse, poems for the passionate. And yes, I am passionate. I'm passionate about people and plants, places, and pets. And so this poem and this book were written because of one of you. Are you listening? Dedication. Once long ago, I wrote a poem about a maple tree. Someone read it and passed it on. One day, not too long ago, a man who also read that poem came near and asked, 4 words that changed my life. Are you the poet? What could I say? My heart was overflowing as I replied, yes, I am the poet. I write the poems for me in the stillness of the morning's light. I write what lies deep within my heart. To have another read my thoughts and understand is the greatest tribute this poet could receive. And so I dedicate this book to Mickey, who took me by surprise and made it all so worthwhile. This book is for Mickey, who is here today, and he's sitting thinking, but I'm not sure he's listening. That's what happens to us as we grow old, isn't it, Mickey? We sometimes doze off during a boring speech. I'm going to walk down to him now and present this book to him because he definitely was instrumental in me writing this book. I would never have dreamed of doing it without him saying first to me, are you the poet? So guys and gals, whatever you're doing is definitely worthwhile. You are part of this world and you are making it a better world. So thank you for listening to me today.
I don't know, I didn't hear much, but
I'm sure you did.
what was going on, but
Vicky, show us smile.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Remember Indian Summer?
Yes,
Along the line,
yeah,
and Smoky Hills, the Pines and Forest Dance.
I got it in here.
Have you? Good.
Yeah, thank you.
You're more than welcome. And this goes with it too. In case you don't want it, give it to somebody else.
Thank you, everyone. That's very nice.
Yeah. So Shirley, just indulge us just a little bit longer. Incredible, inspiring words, and thank you for all of the work that you've done in cooperation and in partnership with the NPCA over the last year. Your words truly are uplifting and inspiring, so thank you so much. At this time, I'll leave it up to members of the board. If you have any questions or comments of Shirley, now's the time. Member Maloney.
Chair, there we are. Just a comment that Ms. Lazarus was my grade 3 teacher. And you can tell she was a teacher. She still hasn't, she still has that knack. And she was Miss Rogers then, and she was a strict teacher, as I recall. It's good to see you again, Shirley.
Thank you, John. It was a wonderful time at Steel Street School. And in those days, as I say, years ago, things were certainly different. And I'm not saying they were better, they were just different. And I think what you folks are doing now to keep this world a better place, I know we thought we were, and you certainly must think you are, but reflect once in a while and look back and think what it is that you are doing, what you have done with your life. Because when you reach this stage, 86 is kind of scary. And you begin to think about all the things you might have done and didn't. So thank you very much for having me here today. I enjoyed it very much. It certainly beats sitting on the couch and watching The Young and the Restless.
Thank you, Shirley. Again, thank you for your inspiring words and the partnerships that we've been able to form over the last year.
Well,
Thanks.
I'm looking forward to going into schools, John, in Fonthill, because my dad came out to Canada in 1913, and he did attend the school that was torn down, Fonthill Public, but I understand that there are still 3 schools that want me. So thank you.
Thanks, Shirley.
Okay.
So just for the benefit of the board, I know over the past month or so, board members have been making their way to individual schools. I know myself, I did 2 schools last week, and I'll do another one this week, presenting those Canada 150 plaques. And it's an incredible example of the partnerships that we've been able to form. Anthony Galaccio, we used his picture, we used Miss Lazarus' poem, and again, we used probably one of the most iconic symbols here at the NPCA, the Comfort maple tree. So again, they hang proudly in a lot of schools all over the region, reminding people of the importance not only of the celebration of Canada's 150th birthday, but the importance of trees and nature. So thank you again for all those individuals that had a hand to play in that incredible partnership. Again, special thanks to Member Beatty and the foundation board for coming up with the idea. Incredible dedicated staff. I know Renee is in the audience right now, Erica. Thank you so much for your willingness to work with so many partners in the community and able to move that project forward. So thanks again. The next item on the agenda are delegations. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Chuck Jansen to come to the podium, but I'm going to have Member Shurton introduce Chuck and maybe just give a small preamble as far as the reason that Mr. Jansen is here today. Member Shurton?
Thank you. Yeah, Chuck and Lori, Tony Quirk and I, Member Quirk, wrote, they have an erosion problem. Their location is about 10 minutes east of Dunnville in the Lowbanks area, and their cottage properties are in an area which is about 30 to 40 feet above Lake Erie. And there's quite a few properties that have break walls, and there's quite a few that don't have break walls. And without having a break wall that is not broken, the water gets in behind and causes issues for even the people who have break walls. So both Chuck and Lori were at Haldeman County last week to make a delegation, and I'm glad that they're here today. They're going to be looking to see what our board can do, and I know one of the main issues where they feel that would be benefit, they realize they have to consult the board and the Conservation Authority to get permits to reconstruct or build a new break wall. And they feel if they could somehow, instead of issuing 30 individual permits, one that they could jointly submit might help them easier to get costing as far as the tender, as far as building the break wall. Currently, there's about 6 properties that our bylaw has basically confirmed that they're unable to live in, and they had to vacate their properties. Some of these properties are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's unfortunate that they can't enjoy their nest egg or their summer retirement homes. So Chuck and Lori are going to give a little presentation, and it'll be great to see everybody's thoughts and input. And at this time, I'd like to invite Chuck and or Lori to the podium.
He's passing the baton on to me today as he's got I think it's a toad or something that's protected by the Niagara Conservation Authority stuck in his throat. He picked it up here somewhere. So I'm going to go ahead and give the presentation. Thank you, Member Shurton, for that introduction, and thank you all for giving us this opportunity to speak with you today. I'll probably direct you more to the slideshow on the screen behind you instead of looking at me. That'll make me less nervous. And we're going to have a number of pictures to show you exactly what we're dealing with in Low Banks. Our delegation is a group of Haldeman County taxpayers with cottages, homes, and businesses on Lake Erie. We are dealing with the drastic effects of erosion. All of our properties have suffered damage from high water levels and recent storms. The damages range from soil loss to destroyed break walls to unsafe houses. We're part of a growing movement who are overwhelmed with trying to manage shoreline erosion on our own. We're here today to ask the NPCA for help. A program to coordinate erosion controls along the Lake Erie shoreline is required. Funding assistance for property owners who are installing or maintaining break walls is needed. Practical assistance could include long-term repayment options and grants. Property owners should not have to apply for permits individually. Rather, the work should be accomplished under one permit covering the entire affected area. Wait times for permits need to be eliminated in order to get the work done as soon as possible. Hydrological or engineering studies should not be repeated by each and every landowner, but undertaken by the NPCA, county, region, and other stakeholders. A water stewardship program is needed, or an information site where all this information about funding and techniques and application processes would be in one place. The following pictures that you're about to see show the beach, shoreline, and properties from years ago until now. Properties that once had beautiful lake frontage and water access have now disappeared into the lake. No longer can owners walk down the beach and access their boat lifts. Land and lawns used for holding family gatherings and activities no longer exist. Today, the Erie shoreline is eroding into the lake, causing loss of beach area, higher bluffs, increased water turbidity, loss of wildlife and plant habitat, and ongoing property damage and loss. These are some of the pictures of the state of the bank today, of the erosion. The Great Lake water levels are recorded weekly by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who forecast Lake Erie levels to remain high. They're currently at their record high from 1986. Take a look at this picture of Gull Island. This was taken in the 70s and the next. And here's a picture of the island today. The island is almost completely underwater. The high lake levels are wreaking havoc on the shoreline when storms come. We're not sure what is causing the lake to be at record high levels. We're not here to debate that today, but we suspect the dredging of the St. Clair River or changes in the lake levels in Lake Ontario are one of many contributing factors. Lake levels must be investigated and addressed to prevent further erosion. Property owners are suffering loss of equity, some even their homes. We have not created this problem, but we are the ones dealing with the financial and emotional impact. A few weeks ago, some homeowners on Villela and Derner were issued an order to prohibit occupancy and an order to remedy an unsafe building. I might add that the buildings are not unsafe. The problem is that the lake is eating our property. One owner contacted CHCH-TV to bring awareness to the situation, and these homeowners are ones who need immediate help. Also of grave concern is the health of the lake. Clay, dirt, soil, debris, trees is falling into the lake, which surely has environmental impacts. One property owner who has been on the lake since 1995 commented after a kayak trek that the erosion is worse and the water levels higher than he has ever seen. He also noted the high silt levels and poor water quality. The shoreline is hazardous with wood, metal, concrete, rebar, debris from failing breakwalls going directly into the lake. On a clear day, you can still see the remains of water wells now several feet underwater. Property owners are trying to deal with erosion on an individual basis, often with limited resources or knowledge about adequate barrier solutions and permits required. Owners are reaching out to companies seeking information or quotes and finding that companies are too busy or do not service the area. We need help to protect the land, protect the lake, and to fix this problem that is neither caused by us or under our control. Property owners who install barriers are often flanked by others who do not, including property that's owned by Haldimand County, where no action is taken. Individual erosion control efforts are lost in storms when waves entering from non-protected properties crash around breakwalls, causing further damage. Many owners have constructed breakwalls for protection at great personal expense. There's examples of those here. Others do not have financial means to construct or replace failing breakwalls. Property owners are constantly dealing with monetary loss with each and every storm, year after year. In 2010, a 93-page report was presented as an update to the Shoreline Management Plan. Chuck has a copy of it right behind him here. And it was done over the Lake Erie watershed of the NPCA. There were erosion hazard maps prepared for 72 kilometers of the shoreline, including the area that we're speaking of today. 30 pages of this report outlines prevention and protection measures. What action has been taken? What concrete assistance has been given to property owners to put measures into place? Erosion control processes are not clearly documented or easily accessible, leading to misinformation and perception of bias. Now the Grand River Conservation Authority is currently conducting another hazard mapping to be completed by 2020. Many studies have been done, some dated back to the 1970s. The land is disappearing as studies continue, and inaction remains. We'd rather see the NPCA working with other stakeholders seek bids to help provide immediate erosion and protection rather than one more study with no practical action or application. A community of over 60 homes and 2 seasonal recreation businesses are at risk. The shores of Lake Erie need protection and preservation, and several options will help. Some municipalities have initiated programs under the Shoreline Protection Act. The programs range from tiered funding based on investment to funding for shoreline renaturalization to water stewardship programs. Some examples are Toronto with funding up to 35%. Lake Simcoe region has funding in a stewardship program. Chatham, Kent, Leamington, Kingsville, their mayor is advocating for reinstatement of shared funding programs. And in the Bay of Quinte, remedial action plans with multi-option programs are being put in place depending on types of ownership. Owners with damaged property, especially those deemed unsafe, need immediate consideration in the form of expedited permits, extension for work completion, and long-term affordable funding. Homeowners that received these notices are reeling and need help. Community members are also concerned about these orders, as there is a risk of an order coming to their door, further loss of equity due to the land going in the lake, or inaction by those people who are leaving their properties or abandoning them. And we're asking the NPCA to direct staff to expedite permits, grant one permit fee for the entire affected area, and to investigate funding and/or grant options from the provincial or federal government for shoreline protection assistance. Proper erosion control management is the key to long-term sustainability of Lake Erie, the waterfront, and this cannot be left to individual homeowners anymore. We should no longer be responsible to solve a problem that is not ours. The NPCA in Haldimand County has jurisdiction over and provides permits for private and public roads and buildings, and is responsible to protect the land and the shoreline it oversees. The NPCA continues to approve building permits on properties with no erosion control measures in place. We ask the authority to take a leadership role in preserving the waterfront and to seriously and immediately consider options to assisting these property owners. We recognize that there is no easy solution, but this problem needs to be addressed. Erosion can no longer be ignored, as you can see by these pictures. This issue is one that requires more than a Band-Aid solution, and one thing is clear. We as property owners should not be expected to solely bear the cost of shoreline preservation and protection. A government-coordinated approach to providing a comprehensive shoreline protection is the best solution, with funding, clear processes, and standards. Your immediate attention to this matter is needed, and we look forward to working together to come up with a solution to this environmental issue, a solution that needs to happen sooner than later when the land is no more. Thank you so much. We're happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Mrs. Jansen, for your presentation. I gave you a couple of minutes over the 10-minute limit. I understand as an affected property owner, this is something that's near and dear to your heart. So at this time, if you want to stay to the podium, I'll open up to members. But first, I'd like a mover and a seconder to accept the presentation, make it part of the permanent record. Moved by Member Dart, second by Member Quirk. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Questions or comments from board members? Member DeFrucio.
I feel for these people because I experienced this. Back in the 80s, I bought some property on Manitoulin Island, and just after the forest fire there. And the name of the place was, they called it Burnt Harbor, was connected with the forest fire. So we built a camp there for hunting. The third year we come up to the camp in the summer, and we couldn't find the camp. It disappeared. And what it was, a high water on the North Channel, everything froze over, which they get, you're right across from Blind River. Our camp was gone, it disappeared. And we were isolated, and so nobody notified us. And I came on the board in '94, and they started the subdivision on the Michigan side of Port Dalhousie. And I argued here on the board, I don't know if they got minutes going back to there, that they shouldn't be building that subdivision so close to the water. They were taking some of the beach away. And I said the high water's going to come back like it did in Georgian Bay where we were, and it's going to wash all them houses out. And who's going to pay for it? The general public. And this is the same thing. These poor people have built there or bought cottages there, and now this is happening with what they call global warming. So it's up to us now to lobby the government to put a buffer zone. You can't build within so many hectares of the high water mark.
Okay, so I appreciate your comments, Mickey.
And
Do you,
that's the first relief they could get.
do you have any questions of the presenters at this time, or you just want to make those comments?
Yeah, well, this is, a lot of these people have had cottages for years and years, or they bought them from somebody else. I'm not blaming them. I'm not saying that, you know, but it's up to us now to stop anybody building close to the lake.
Okay.
There should be a buffer zone. I argued then, and I'm arguing now, 25 years later.
Thanks for those comments, Mickey. Any other board members with questions or comments for the presenters? Member Maloney, then Member Quirk.
Have any efforts been made to lobby the provincial government to introduce programs which would assist you to undertake the works?
There are programs apparently under the Shoreline Protection Act. We don't qualify for the provincial disaster relief funding that is out there because I guess it's not like one specific storm that causes this damage. It's an ongoing, you know, storm after storm, year after year that's causing this now disaster. We have spoken with one member of parliament who was just re-elected into the riding in Haldimand County, Member Barrett. And we've been advised that it's really through the county that funding requests need to come. And so we're just mobilizing as a community now because the matter has become urgent as people have, as you can see, are losing their homes now. People who once had 200, 300 feet, they've been there for 50 years, no longer have that due to nothing that they have done themselves. And so we're mobilizing. I have sent a long email to Toby Barrett, and I have not heard a response yet, but that will be our next steps, is to start lobbying the provincial government. Again, we're mobilizing, but we're doing this on our own, and we're just looking for help. The NPCA has so much say over permits, though, and the length of time that it takes to get permits for people who do have the financial funding to get things in place. It has been a problem, and that's partly why we're here to speak to you today, as well as getting your support. We would appreciate any kind of letters of support that you would send on behalf of this issue for lands that are overseen by this conservation authority.
I would certainly endorse a letter of support. I know way back when the province had the Shoreline Property Assistance Act where you could get a loan interest-free for 10 years, repayable over 10 years, and a lot of lakeside owners qualified for this. And I appreciate that you had to get a permit from the Conservation Authority, but probably wasn't as perhaps restrictive as it is now. But I support your efforts, and I would hope that this Conservation Authority would lobby the provincial government as quickly as possible, because the fall storms are coming. And often these properties are not inaccessible, but very difficult to access to get their armor rock or the walls erected. So at the appropriate time, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to make a resolution or motion to that effect.
And I'd appreciate your comments, Member Maloney, and as a sitting member from a host municipality that sits on Lake Erie, I'd be more than happy to entertain your motion at the appropriate time. Member Quirk.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say thanks through you to Chuck and Lori for letting us go take a look at the situation. One of the things that really stood out for me, and there was one picture I think you saw there where it's actually been eaten under a cement pad. It was probably about halfway through your presentation, and that was clearly a result of a property owner to the east of the Haldimand right-of-way, and the property owner to the west had put shoreline protection, but the right-of-way had never got any shoreline protection, and it had eaten out like a bowl and would eat around and getting in behind the other thing. So it has to be a comprehensive process and program all the way through. I'll be happy to second the motion from Member Maloney when it comes forward, but I think we need to endorse the efforts of the municipalities. I know that our staff is working with, it's the Long Beach Conservation Authority, the Grand River Conservation Authority, and ourselves that are working on a technical group, but Grand River's taken the lead on the technical side of that to sort of find out what we can do to expedite the process and make sure that we don't have each individual homeowner having to do an individual study. Doesn't make sense when it can be done comprehensively. So I hope that our staff will take that as direction as well to do everything we can to make sure that the MPCA is not the impediment to getting this work done. Is the first part of it. And secondly, as you know, we don't have the fiscal capacity to provide direct supports in terms of financial. It'll have to be a provincial or federal process that has to be engaged. So I think we would have every right to have conversations with our federal and provincial counterparts as well as our municipal partners to say, hey, we can help be part of the solution, but you're going to have to come up with some funding for it. So I think that would be appropriate as well.
Mr. Jansen, you had a comment?
Yeah, if I could just add, it has to be it should be a one program for the whole shore. There's elderly people that, they're not going to be there much longer. They don't care. There's people that still aren't too bad, and they're like, we don't care yet. But so then there's a whole. And it's got to be one program to do the whole shore. And yeah, we haven't created the problem, and we weren't going to debate the high water level, but there is definitely debate there why it's high, and it's nothing we've done. And yeah.
Sometimes the pictures and the visuals make the most dramatic impact, and the presentation you brought this morning certainly highlights that something needs to be done to provide relief for those homeowners and certainly for the municipality. So I'll entertain any more questions or comments for the presenters, and then I'll go to Member Maloney. Member Sherton?
Yes, I just wanted to thank both Chuck and Lori for being here, and great presentation, Lori. Chuck, I understand you have a member that's your school teacher, and I know he has your support. One question I have, you mentioned about break walls and contractors to install them, because there is maybe not as many per se that do this kind of work. What timelines, you mentioned that they're quite busy. Did you reach out to any of them to get any timelines? Like, are they 3 months, or like what kind of stages are they at as far as being able to maybe come and give quotes on potential break walls?
Well, we've had a couple quotes. One, Dunville Silo, not an actual quote, but he's like, well, it takes 2 years just to get a permit. Now, can he get the job done? We need to be in the water in August. We realize the fish, we can't be until after July. We need to be in the water in August to get anything done this fall. And we have one guy that does steel walls. He would come in with 12 to 15 machines, pound in a steel wall. If he hits bedrock, he'll pin it to the bedrock. But the fishery don't like steel walls. So there's steel walls all over the lake. So I don't like, the fish like muddy water to spawn in. I don't see the problem with steel walls. They're guaranteed for 50 years. There's a lot of work that has to be done behind the steel walls to support them. But, so yeah, we've had 2 people look at it so far, but it really depends on the permits. We can't even get a price, because if we can't get a permit for a year, well, steel's going up, thank goodness, or not thank goodness, because, unfortunately, because of trade wars right now. Concrete, it all depends when it's going to get done. So it's hard to get a firm price.
Thank you.
Member Beatty.
How's that? Just a question. Is Greg and his people already involved in this, or do we have to refer it, or are we into this now, or do we have to direct?
So I'm going to go to staff to certainly have some input, and they're certainly going to help Member Maloney craft some language. But right after your comments, Member Beatty, I was going to go to staff to provide their comments, and then go to Member Maloney to make his motion.
I just want to make sure that they're involved And if they're not involved, do they need direction? Where are we?
Having said that, I will turn the floor over to the CAO, Mr. Brickell or Mr. Fertney.
Thank you. And thank you for an excellent presentation. You demonstrate how complex the issue is and how difficult it is and how frustrating it must be to be in your situation right now, because obviously it involves multiple parties and stakeholders having to come to the table very quickly and urgently to deal with this matter. We are at the table, as the member indicated, working on the technical side of it. I can commit the organization to expediting permits wherever possible, and we will obviously look at minimizing and or waiving fees wherever we can. There is an urgency to this matter. We do have it's a dynamic problem, it's a growing problem, and it's become, there is something changing out there. And we, as you know, we are trying to take a look at those greater climate change impacts and other impacts that may be in play here. And so the situation that has emerged is not what was there 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And so there are actual changes taking place on the ground. We know that globally, but here's a great example of it. It's one of the reasons that conservation authorities were originally formed, was because of we see that water actually can do massive amounts of damage, and that it's constantly in a battle and fight with the land itself. And it goes back and forth, and right now we've reached that critical point in Haldeman. Very pleased to see newly elected member Jeff Birch here today in the gallery. Hopefully he'll go back to the province and lobby very hard to bring millions of dollars of relief to this situation. Certainly his support and work in this effort would be greatly appreciated, and so I'm glad to see you here today, and hopefully you've heard the message from the people in the community, and will be able to offer your support to bring dollars to the table. Obviously, I'm sure the board's going to support. We commit further to being at the table as well as we work through the problems. And whatever task force or advisory committees are needed to provide additional support, we will be there. And certainly, I suspect the board will fully support the notion of yes, we need urgent funding from the province, and they may have to bend their rules a little bit on the emergency relief funding to be able to access some of those dollars, because clearly we have a developing emergency.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Mr. CAO. Mr. Fertney, if, no? Okay. Seeing no other questions or comments, I want to thank you both for your presentation. And to our CAO's comments, we do have an MPP in our audience this morning, so hopefully he can collaborate with the government and certainly our federal, provincial, and municipal counterparts. I want to thank Member Shurton. He's always been a strong advocate on this particular issue, and you're very well represented at the Conservation Authority by Member Shurton bringing forward these issues. So thank you to Member Shurton as well. Seeing no other questions, I'm going to turn to Member Maloney. If you would like to put something on the floor, Member Maloney, and what we'll do is I want to gauge the sense of urgency, and hearing from the delegates, there is a sense of urgency. So what I will ask for a formalized motion. I will ask that the rules of procedure be waived, and then I'll allow Member Maloney to put his motion on the floor. I think it should be formalized, Member Maloney, rather than just direction from staff, and an endorsement from this board would do that. So having said that, Member Dart.
I'll make a motion to put the procedures aside, the rules.
Okay, so there's been a motion seconded by Member Quirk to waive the rules of procedure. A simple majority is needed. All those in favor of waiving the rules of procedure? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much for that. I'll turn to Member Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll attempt to craft a motion that will cover all the contingencies, and I look forward to any assistance or suggestions from members of the board.
So just out of deference for you, Member Maloney, I could move that further down in the agenda if you want to collaborate with staff, and certainly over the course of the next hour of this meeting, we can make sure that that motion gets passed this morning, if that's helpful. If you have something to do, then that's good? Okay, so we'll look back to Member Maloney later in the agenda, and we'll be crafting that motion, making sure that we capture all the elements that this board wants to bring forward with respect to communicating the sense of urgency to our partners. So thank you both for your presentation, and if you want to stick around for that motion, but we'll make sure that we inform you as far as that support that you're getting from the MPCA. Thanks.
Great. Thank you again very much for letting us come and speak to the delegation. Thank you, Lisa, for your help in getting us organized to be here. And thank you to Tony Quirk, Rob Shurton for actually coming out and standing on the shores with us and looking at our situation. You're all invited out anytime. I'll give you a cup of coffee and you can stand on the shores and witness it firsthand. Okay. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next delegations this morning. I'll ask Mr. Platakis to come to the podium. And representing the founder and CEO of Geospatial Niagara, welcome. We did have a presentation, I think last month at the region. So have at it, gentlemen. The podium is yours.
We'll wait till the presentation is loaded.
Member Quirk?
Thank you, Chair. You alluded to the fact we had this presentation at the Regional Council, and as a result of that, I suggested that perhaps the presentation would be here because I think originally there was some misunderstanding about what this Niagara was talking about, and I think there's a real opportunity for the MPCA to be partners with the use of our natural heritage features as a destination marketing tool and to highlight the natural features that we have in Niagara, and a lot of those really neat and exciting features are within Conservation Authority properties and places that we would like to be able to open the doors to the public to come and see. So I'm really happy to see you here today to make the presentation, and I'm hoping that the board will endorse the concept and have staff work to how we can best use our properties to help expand the offering that's there for the program. And I didn't talk long enough to fill the gap here while we're getting ready, so I will...
We're going to be emailing the presentation. Apologize to the gallery.
So apologies for the delay and the technical difficulties, but we'll get that presentation up as quickly as possible. Okay. Looks like we're good to go. So thanks everyone for your indulgence.
So I want to thank you at this time for your time and attention of the chair and the members and the public gallery as well. My name is Darren Platicus. I am here representing Geospatial Niagara and the Oniagara Aspiring Geopark. My colleague Ian Lucas is here, being the slide monitor, as it were, and Phil Davis from the Cultural Resources Coordinator for the Niagara Regional Native Center sends his regrets that he couldn't be here today. So, a geopark is a unified area that advances the protection and use of geological heritage in a sustainable way and promotes the economic well-being of the people who live there. Characteristics of a geopark, they are established to grow local sustainable geotourism, a very bottom-up, grassroots, community-driven organization. They are not-for-profit, offering a high-value tourism destination and designation, and they are self-funded with sponsorships, memberships, and co-branding opportunities. What we need to stress is that UNESCO Global Geoparks are not, I repeat, not a legislative boundary, and they are not a conventional park in the sense that you would think of a park as like a state park where there's admission costs and things like that. There are no restrictions on any economic activity inside the geopark, where those activities comply with indigenous, local, regional, provincial, and national municipal legislation, and there are no land use restrictions. Currently in Canada, there are 3 UNESCO Global Geoparks. The first one is in Stonehammer Geopark in St. John, New Brunswick. The second was Tumbler Ridge Global Geopark in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia. And the most recent one in 2018 is the Percé Global Geopark in Percé, Quebec. In addition, there are 7 aspiring geoparks across Canada. 3 of those are in Ontario, Temiskaming Rift Valley on the border of Ontario and Quebec, the Big Impact Aspiring Geopark in Sudbury, and the Oniagara Aspiring Geopark here in Niagara. So they are very based in geotourism. So what is geotourism? Geotourism sustains or enhances the distinctive geographical character of a place, its environment, heritage, aesthetics, culture, and the well-being of its residents. Think of these as bucket list destinations for tourism. The economic benefits of geotourism, new job opportunities, new economic activities, diversification of those tourism offerings, providing additional sources of income, especially in rural regions, where you promote local products, local handicrafts, or local economies. So there are several branded business opportunities for like signage, as an example, or restaurants, B&Bs, other hotels or other tourism operation partners, or environmental organizations. So these are the most recent financial benefits of geotourism from the Stonehammer Geopark. From between 2015 and 2016, they experienced a 6.4% increase in their revenues within that tourism destination. They had a 5% increase in the number of visitors that they experienced, and their overnight visits increased 4.6%. So if you take that in terms of Niagara, where the bulk of the tourism happens along the Niagara River corridor with Niagara Falls and Niagara-on-the-Lake, and then possibly in Lincoln and Beamsville, we seek to increase those 1 to 2 night stays into 3 and 4 and 5 night stays, so people can experience all of Niagara rather than just a couple days and out. Tumbler Ridge Global Geopark, they were in a unique position where they were actually able to track the number of visitors that actually came to the geopark. And in 2014, it started off with 2,000 visitors, and by 2017, it ballooned to 17,000. Other research that we've done regarding the financial benefits come from the United Kingdom, where there is net benefit, financial benefit after the costs of the status. But what stands out here is the value of the grants that are attracted, and like the research dollars that come into the program as well. Go ahead, Ian. So more key pillars of geotourism. It's all about conservation and restoration, sustainability and growth, cultural awareness, and educational opportunities between kindergarten to post-secondary and beyond. So it promotes conservation, education, and sustainability. And we offer some world-class geosites and tourism opportunities through cycling and paddleboarding and the like, and unique cultural events as well that can be tied together across the entire Niagara region. This is just a slide of the various other global geoparks around the world. Currently there are upwards of over 120, I think it's actually closer to 140 geoparks around the world. They began in Southeast Asia and in Asia, and there are quite a few in Eastern and Western Europe. But in North America and South America, there are only 5. And our time is now, so why not Niagara? So currently, we are seeking engagement with all the Niagara municipalities and Indigenous communities to be actively involved to promote our cultural diversity, including the local community organizations, nature enthusiasts, historical societies, conservation clubs, because we want to provide a measurable increase in tourism revenue, not only in the typical areas of tourism, but across the region itself. We want to use the Canada Summer Games as an awareness opportunity for the aspiring geopark across Canada. And we have a fantastic opportunity in 2024 with the total solar eclipse that will be transecting right across the Niagara region. And add to that, in 2026, apparently we have the World Cup of Soccer coming to Toronto as well. And so a lot of those countries that participate in the World Cup of Soccer also have global geoparks in their communities. So we have so much to offer, from conservation areas like the Wainfleet Bog, but we also have infrastructure such as the first, second, and third Welland Canals that would be tremendous cultural assets and tourism magnets. So currently, the accreditation process to date, we've officially been an aspiring global geopark for over 3 years now. We have to report annually on our work in the community in terms of promotion. Our planned final application is sometime in 2019, 2020, depending on how the chips fall. We are creating a nonprofit corporation, and we're putting our board and advisory committees together. And we've had a number of stakeholder approaches to date, including the list that you see in front of you, and also with Scotiabank Convention Center being the most recent one that we've been talking with. I apologize for the map in terms of visibility. These are about 12 or 14 geosites that we found through a project with the Niagara College GIS and Geospatial Management Program. I've recently done another count, and I've had to stop counting at 63 potential geosites, which can be expanded at any time as the park grows. Unfortunately, Mr. Davis couldn't be here today to speak to the Indigenous community's perspective, and I don't want to put words into his mouth, but they are behind our striving to get this designation. So right now, we're trying to find the right people, right representative board of directors, an executive director, and seeking subject matter experts across Niagara, whether it's tourism, whether it's economics, geomorphology, geology, and then try to work towards raising some funds, whether it's through memberships or donations and the like. And we are working to earn political support. As Member Quirk pointed out, we presented to the Planning and Economic Development Committee. Hopefully at some point we can report to all of Regional Council. We would like to get into the municipalities to share information, whether it's through committees or through councils. regional and provincial agencies, and we're looking for board and executive candidate recommendations if anybody happens to know anyone. So moving forward, if anybody wants to get any more information, there's so much more information that could be discussed, but we only have 10 minutes. But I can be reached at any of these means. And full disclosure, I work in the planning department at the region, so you can find me there if you ever wanted to come out and talk. That's it.
So thank you for the presentation. Quickly, thank you for Member Quirk for extending the invitation. I remember this presentation at the region, and it was very well received. Having said that, I'll open up to members for question or comments. Member Quirk.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to make a motion that we receive the presentation officially, and I'm also going to add to that motion that we direct staff to explore partnership opportunities with the Geopark. And if I get a second, I'm happy to speak to it.
Moved by second by Member Dart.
So again, I want to say thank you to Darren for coming and doing the presentation, for the operation of the slide deck. Because I do think that this is an excellent opportunity. The values that align with the UNESCO Geopark are almost verbatim of what we've been talking about with respect to conservation. You know, conservation is about protecting land for the people to use and utilize and use for education purposes. And when I got especially excited when I saw the little stars on the map, I know that Grimsby's got a nice big bright star in the center of it, but that's actually, I believe, Beamer Conservation Area, which is an ideal natural heritage feature with the 40 Mile Creek going through it, but there was also other stars that represented Balls Falls. It's not on there, but I know that Cave Springs is an excellent opportunity for heritage. As that master plan gets approved, there's another opportunity to be working together and find locations that are not just Niagara-centric, but basically conservation properties that could be utilizing this as a way to draw more attention to what we do, as well as to offer a greater selection for the offering for the UNESCO Park. And I know you're only at 63, we could probably bump it up for a little bit, but with all those great opportunities, as we know, the tourism, a lot of it's directed to Niagara Falls and by extension Niagara-on-the-Lake, and we are always looking for ways to expand that further afield and working together. So thanks for the work you're doing. I look forward to seeing this project come to fruition, and I think it actually adds a higher level of cachet than just sort of the World Biosphere aspect that we get from the escarpment. It's the World Biosphere and the UNESCO Geopark that works hand in hand, and hopefully we have a conversation with the Bruce Trail people and how we connect all those facilities within a comprehensive offering.
Okay, so thank you, Member Quirk. So procedurally, let's receive the report, and then I'll go back to boards. So all those in favor of receiving the report? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Questions or comments on the heels of Member Quirk? Member Campion?
Sort of on that. Yeah, I thank you very much, and I do appreciate the motion and also the comments from Quirk. I agree with them wholeheartedly. Let's do it. Let's get it done. And I would invite you to come to our council in City of Welland and do a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Campion. Member Beatty, and then we'll go to Member Dart.
Yes, I just want to reinforce that Balls Falls and Cave Springs be put on that list, because there is nothing more beautiful, wonderful pieces of property in Niagara, and I'm from Hamilton. So I want to make sure that those two are on the list because they are phenomenal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Member Dart.
I'm not sure what that meant about being from Hamilton, but I'd like to, later in the agenda when we talk about approval of the minutes of the last meeting, I want to talk to, because one of the things we had was your discussions in Halifax and our DND lands, so I'd like to consider this for us too. So I'll make that mention now and talk later.
Okay, thank you for that. So right now, we have received the report. I'm judging from the feel around the room that we should also add endorse as well. I don't know if that's premature, but I'll leave it up to the membership to decide, to the mover, if that's exactly his intent.
I'm happy to go with the endorsement. My actual motion was to direct staff to look at ways we could partner with the Geopark, with our properties, and which properties make sense and which ones we can make accessible. So that was the motion. I'm also happy to endorse the concept and principle as well as part of that.
Okay, so wrapping it all up, that we receive the report, we receive and endorse the report, and we direct staff to investigate a little bit further as far as any potential partnerships. So I'm hoping Lisa captured that. Okay, any other questions or comments? Yep.
Just as an addition, maybe I could also, we can refer it to our foundation chair. I know the conversation we've had is how we can find some initial seed funding to get some of the initial stuff done. I know the foundation might be put in front of the foundation to talk about things that we can contribute through the foundation to enhancing conservation opportunities.
Okay. Member Beatty?
Thank you. I welcome that opportunity in terms of the foundation's involvement. I'm a member of the Escarpment Commission as well, and I would suggest because they have the formal designation of being UNESCO World Heritage Site that you consider making a presentation. I feel it's synergistic what your plan is here to that existing UNESCO designation. But if you'd be interested in doing that, I'd be happy to assist.
At a recent workshop that we did in Ottawa for the Global Geoparks, we connected with Lisa Gribicek there, and she was interested in us coming to make a presentation. And if I might respond to Member Dart's comments, the D&D lands were in my list of 63, as well as Fort George is in there as well, and the Virgil conservation area as well. So there's lots going on in Niagara-on-the-Lake in terms of that.
So thank you for that, Member Beatty. Good. So it just seems to me that there's a lot of synergy that could be created with this initiative. My question to you, gentlemen, is as you go forward and you're trying to craft the terms of reference and the board makeup, are we putting the cart before the horse right now? What's your time frame as far as getting those things up and going?
Do you want to add?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we had our first official board meeting last week, and we are moving rapidly. We've got a meeting on, I think it's July the 5th, to make sure that we have our positioning statements and so on correct, and our strategy in place, going through a formal process of making sure that's all agreed by the board. We have officially or unofficially at that time, we have representation from one of the MPCA staff. That's Kerry, and she very kindly gave some of her time to that initial meeting, and we're hoping that you will support her continuing in some kind of role on that board.
Okay. So that was a perfect segue to my next question was understanding that there's a great opportunity here to collaborate. I was hoping that someone from the NPCA would certainly be the conduit, and it seems that you've picked an excellent representative with Carrie. She does great work here in partnering with our community stakeholders, so I'm happy to hear that. Seeing no other questions or comments, I'll thank both of you gentlemen for bringing forward the presentation, and if there's no more questions, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members.
Thank you.
I think I did. Yeah. Oh, okay. We'll call the question then. If it's still if it's floating in the air right now. All those in favor of Member Quirk's motion, seconded by Member Dart, opposed, and that's carried. Thank you. Okay. So moving forward in the agenda right now, we're going to go into closed session as ordered through the agenda. So I will need a mover and a seconder to go into closed session. Moved by Member McPherson, seconded by Member DeFrucio. All those in favor? Carried. We are now in closed session. So I'll ask members of the gallery if you could kindly leave the room. Thank you. Quorum or no?
No.
Okay, let's wait. Yeah, yeah, so staff is... Yeah. Well, you know what? Let's do it this way, okay? Okay, business arising from closed session. Can I get a motion to proceed as directed in closed session, please? Moved by Member Quirk, seconded by Member Beatty. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the approval of draft minutes. Can I put those minutes on the floor, please? Moved by Member Quirk, seconded by Member Shurton. Question or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting those minutes? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. There are no business arising from those minutes. Moving on, we've triaged the agenda just to make sure that we don't lose quorum. At this time, I will put business for consideration on the agenda floor. The first report is 6.1 strategic, 6.1.2 Budget Steering Committee of June 18th. Can I get a mover to put that on the floor, please? Moved by Member Quirk, seconded by Member Joyner. Question or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item is 6.11 Strategic Planning Committee. Any question or comments? Let's put those on the floor, please. Member Quirk, Member McPherson. All those in favor of accepting? Sure, we can speak to him briefly. Yeah.
And thank you, Chair. I know I'm one of the reasons why we're trying to rush through the agenda, because I know I might be one of the people breaking quorum. I just don't want to rush through this specific item, because the recommendations in front of you in the minutes are to basically to accept the strat plan as it's presented, and everyone should have received in the addendum package today the version that it'll look, the Partners in Conservation of Shared Responsibility, which is the update of the plan, and it has captured our areas of focus. It has captured our reasoning behind the areas of focus and what we will do as an authority over the next 4 years. I'm hoping that the authority members will accept it as presented. I just want to say thank you to everyone from on the board level for doing the working group that started this off, everyone at the staff level who worked tirelessly to make us look good by putting this together, especially the comms team and all the work that's done there. Thank you to the CAO for his 8 initiatives, which we've incorporated the lion's share into this program. And I think that this gives us a nice direction to move forward, and it's going to allow staff to focus on the next 4 years of providing the focus that we provided. So with that, I'm hoping that we'll adopt it today, and then get it printed and made look pretty to send to the public.
Okay. And I'd like to personally thank Member Quirk for his leadership in the drafting of the 2018 to 2021 strategic plan. I want to thank all the members that had a hand in bringing forward their concerns and their comments, and certainly participated in the very public process that we went through to gather all the data that's gone into this. So thank you very much. Member Beatty.
I think my comment is ditto. The process began in terms of the last plan was the first time we ever did that, and I think we did an exceedingly good job in terms of meeting the objectives laid out at the beginning of that 4-year process. This is 4 years plus even some extension into the 8-year term, etc., and I think the public will be well served. Be pleased about the process that happened in terms of getting us to where we are today, and commend all who were involved.
For those comments. Any other question or comments before I call the question on accepting the minutes, which this document is a part of? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay. So what I'd like to do now is move the correspondence. Put those on the floor. Moved by Member Beatty, seconded by Member Shurton. Any question or comments with respect to the piece of correspondence? Member Shurton.
Well, I know, speaking to Member DeFicio, Mickey, he was quite impressed with this article about the preservation and trying to attract monarch butterflies, and I think he's got something under new business he would like to address on this initiative that's being done out in Vancouver.
Okay. I'll look to Member DeFrucio under new business. Okay. Thanks, Tony. Any other question or comments with respect to correspondence? Seeing none, I will look to Mickey for new business, but I will need, I'll call the question. All those in favor of accepting the correspondence? Opposed? And that piece of correspondence is accepted. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is business for information. And there's 2 items. If there's an appetite, we'll move those en bloc. Moved by Member Joyner, seconded by Member McPherson. 2 items, 5.1 and 5.2. If there's any question or comments, our CAO has a comment, so we'll hold it to the board. Any question or comments from the board? Seeing none? No? CAO? Go ahead.
Just on the OPG matter in particular, I wanted to comment. We had a great meeting with OPG. Greg, David, John Wallace and myself attended that meeting. Very productive conversation. They indicated that they have no real concerns with what's been done in the past, and acknowledged that they shared responsibility for the lack of communication around it. But we've set up a plan going forward that we're going to meet with them on a quarterly basis. And we're going to start talking to them about some of the issues related to the Welland River. They've also agreed to support our Million Trees initiative to the tune of about $500,000 along the Welland River. And again, we're going to work together with them to look at studies of interest and other ways we can work cooperatively together and communicate with the people of the watershed. So very productive meeting, and I think it's going to launch a new relationship with OPG.
Okay. Member Beatty?
Just to follow up on OPG. First of all, in here, I get the distinct impression that they're in favor as long as it's associated with the Welland River. We can spend it along the Welland River, the entire watershed.
Mr. CO?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. they did not have concerns about what's happened in the past, and we're not concerned about, you know, we all acknowledge that we have not communicated that this was a deal that really should have been completed in 2012. There was no expression of disappointment about anything that's happened with it. But going forward, yes, we want to be active partners. Their primary focus is centered around the Welland River, and I think we're going to do it more cooperatively going forward, so I look forward to that.
I raise that because the floodplain committee, the discussion we've had all through that was that that reversing of the reversing river of Welland and everything else that goes along with it, the money should be, the impact of OPG is on the Welland River. So the expenditure should be for the benefit of the Welland River. And one other, did we discuss more?
Go ahead.
Through you again, Chair. I think there's absolutely the opportunity for a greater and bigger partnership, additional dollars where there's areas of common interest. We talked about the reverse flow of the river and that there's perhaps a need for greater study, as well as potential study of the benefits of dredging or not. So those topics were on there. It was a good discussion, and we look forward to communicating those matters out on a quarterly basis.
Member Beatty, good? Okay. Seeing no other questions or comments with respect to those two items that were moved on block, I'll call the question. All those in favor of receiving those reports? Opposed? And those reports are received. Thank you. At this time, I will ask, under new business, I will look to Member Maloney. Member Shurton?
Are we going to bypass chairman remarks?
I'll put those to the end, and they will be very, very minimum.
Okay, that's fine then.
Yeah. Member Maloney?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Perhaps a couple preliminary remarks. With the assistance of Mr. Fertney, we have discovered that the Shoreline Property Assistance Act still exists, and it's in full force and effect, which means that these folks could apply for funding to make their retaining walls, whatever. The awkward part, of course, that these retaining walls, especially in high banks, it's so difficult to get trucks and armor rock down to the water's edge. It's going to be a very expensive proposition for them. So that I will bring forward this motion, but I'm not sure it's going to have immediate aid for these folks. I think perhaps we're looking for some financial assistance from the province, or certainly from us, but we're not in that position to provide that. But I'm not sure that this motion is going to be really fruitful for them. In any event, I will make the motion as follows, that the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority urge the provincial government to immediately establish an effective, reasonable program of financial assistance to shoreline property owners to construct works to combat erosion and provide protection from rising water levels. Number two, that the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority make all efforts to expedite the issuance of any necessary permits required for the remedial works. Number three, that the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority urge the federal, provincial, and regional governments to take all necessary steps to reduce the water levels of the Great Lakes and tributaries. That's my motion.
Thank you, Member Maloney, for bringing that forward. I'll entertain questions or comments with respect to the motion.
Seconder.
Oh, seconded by, Member Quirk was, but no, Member Shurton, you're still in attendance, so seconded by Member Shurton. Question or comments? Member DeFrucio.
I'd like to add to John Maloney's motion.
Okay. You like?
This conservation authority approach the provincial government to have a buffer zone all around the Great Lakes and waterways, and we won't be running into this trouble. And I brought that up before, in 1994, the Michigan side of Port Lucie, when they came here to get permission to build up to the shoreline in Port Weller. And I argued at that time that the high water was going to come back, because I mentioned about our hunt camp. And it did. Last summer, we got flooded in Port Lucie.
Okay, so,
It's up to us now.
well,
to go
hold on.
after the government.
So,
for a buffer zone.
okay, so Member DeFruscia, I appreciate the comment, but to make that motion, to make that amendment, there is a funding obligation if the NPCA would be in charge of that. So it's fundamentally different than seeking collaboration from our partners like Member Maloney's motion suggests. So I'm going to suggest that those comments be captured in the minutes, but it not be part of the motion that Member Maloney is bringing forward, because I do think Member Maloney's comments capture what you're trying to say as far as working collaboratively with the province, with the region, with our federal partners in order to see what we can do to help those residents, okay? So thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Member Joyner.
The first question is, when they had the flooding in Port Dalhousie, did they ever successfully receive any funding from the provincial government, or was it just the federal government? Who could answer that?
Okay. I can't, but I don't know if there's anyone here that can.
I believe they got money from the federal government.
Okay.
I believe that Mayor Senzek went after the feds for some money and received it, but I'm not sure if the province ever came through with any funding.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll try to get you an answer as far as if there's a funding model or path that's already been forged forward. Okay. Maybe it's something similar that these residents or the municipality can take.
Okay, my second question is, when we talk about a tributary, does a tributary have to be connected to the Great Lakes? So for instance, the Welland River, is that considered a tributary?
That's a great question as far as putting some definitions, some parameters around that. I'll ask the mover to... Okay, so the intent is, and captured in the minutes, the intent is that the Welland River is considered part of those tributaries, part of the motion. Okay.
Can we identify all of the tributaries in Niagara then?
That's a... Can we...
I'm just trying to figure out the scope here. It says, if Member Maloney could read it out again, it says the Great Lakes and the tributaries. Please identify what a tributary is and which ones are in and which ones are out. I just clearly want to know.
Seeking clarification that I'll rule it in order as far as putting some parameters and definition to the term tributaries. If Member Maloney wants to speak to that.
Well, I can only, any river or creek that flows into the Great Lakes anywhere along along the 5 Great Lakes would be considered a tributary and would be contributing to the problem that we've got. I'm not sure what my friend's inquiry is trying to accentuate or resolve. What is the concern? Whether it's a tributary up in Algoma or is a tributary here in the Niagara Peninsula. It's still a tributary flowing into the system. In this case, obviously it would be flowing into the Niagara River and wouldn't impact Lake Erie, but it certainly would impact Lake Ontario. So I could maybe ask Mr. Campion, Mr.
Joyner.
Mr. Joyner.
Just looking for just clarification, really. That's all I'm looking for. What's in, what's out. You know, what is...
If there are concerns, I can drop that word, tributary.
I'll wait for staff's report on that.
All right, so I'm going to seek some definition clarity, and I'll look to the mover to perhaps get some definition around the term tributary. I don't know if there's language in the motion that we can put in there right now that could satisfy the concerns of the member, but still move the motion forward. And I'll entertain those as well. Mr. Cieo?
Through you, Chair. I think from a staff perspective, we would prefer that we remove the reference to tributary, because I think we want to address the immediate issue here, which has been brought to our attention. We're happy to come back with you with a report on other areas that have received substantial damage over the last couple of years and that are increasingly at risk. I think we'd rather bring that to you in a comprehensive report rather than deal with it as a one-off, but I think we should be dealing with the immediate issue that was brought to our attention today.
Okay, so I'll look to the mover to consider that as a friendly amendment.
That's a friendly amendment. We can remove the word tributary if it's fine with Mr. Shurton.
Okay. Member Shurton, you comfortable with that as well?
Well, I am comfortable, but I understand the intent of John and Mr. Maloney's motion here, because, example, Grand River is much higher than it has been, and the Grand River is a major tributary to Lake Erie, which is causing the higher Lake Erie. So I understand the rationale for having the word tributary in it, but after hearing the CEO's comments, I don't think it is the immediate concern right now of the residents in that area, and I can agree to allow it a friendly amendment to remove it, but I'd like to get an update down the road of what is causing some of these higher water levels. And I've also been told it's kind of cyclical, and it's been goes on about a 10 to 15 year cycle, and this is kind of the high cycle, my understanding is.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. So I'll give direction right now, understanding that any motion this board crafts, it can come back. So pending information that we get from staff, if we get a better definition with respect to the term tributary, then by all means, we could make that amendment at another date and add that to our endorsement and certainly our support. So I'm hoping everyone is satisfied with that. But for the current position, let's eliminate the word tributary. And if the mover and the seconder are comfortable with that, I will put the motion on the floor as moved and seconded with that amendment. Sorry, there was no amendment. It was a friendly amendment, so I don't have to add that. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. So thank you. And we can report back to our delegates that that motion was crafted and passed forward. Member B.
Have we had any similar situations developing along Lake Ontario? Because I understand Lake Ontario's getting pretty rough and pretty high too, and I understand Lake Erie because it's it's a different lake. But Lake Ontario, I know we had a cleanup, community cleanup down along 50 Point.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering.
I'll turn to our members who actually represent some of those communities. Member Joyner and then Member McPherson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. We did have shoreline rehabilitation down around Charles Daly Park in that area last year, and we did receive funds from the provincial government to take care of that. So the storms are more significant and more often, and we are seeing shore erosion down that way.
For certain.
The comment I'd like to make is knowing that Lake Erie, at least in the Canada side, is on the southern or the northern shore, and the westerly winds are causing it. Lake Ontario is on the other side, so the winds primarily from the west isn't going to create the erosion issues that would be on Lake Erie, based on that it's on the southern shore with the winds pounding it, and on Lake Ontario it would be the northern shore. So common sense is you shouldn't have the erosional issues unless you have more northern winds.
Okay. Member McPherson.
I'm going to move this to a question around the permit and the speed with which we are processing permits. I'm not sure if that was covered in Member Maloney's motion or not. The request for expedite permit fees and grant one permit for the entire affected area. Is there direction to the staff to consider that?
So I will provide clarity. That was a commitment that our CEO made, that those permits will be expedited, so we'll be working with staff cooperatively. I don't know if it was fully captured in your motion.
Well,
but
it's there,
yeah.
expedited in point
Okay.
2, and I think it was adequate for the time
Okay.
being.
Yep. Yep. Member Joyner.
So speaking to the ideology of Member Shirton, what he's talking about, he's absolutely correct. However, we find that the shores of Lake Ontario along the Grimsby, St. Catharines, Lincoln area are getting pounded and more by these northeasterly winds that are happening. So, you know, you're absolutely right in your theory, but I know Member McPherson in Lincoln is like they're having a heck of a time with shoreline erosion there.
Okay. Well, that motion is moved and seconded and passed, so thank you for that. And like I said, pass that information on to the delegates, and understanding it seems like it's a widespread issue that we need help with. So I appreciate the comments around the table. I will move to the next item on the agenda. Under new business, I'm going to turn to Member Shirton had a question, and I guess Member DeFrucio, under new business, did you want to bring something forward with respect to the pollinator gardens? Go ahead.
I think it's in the minutes about the monarch butterfly and what British Columbia is doing, and the Americans are doing it. They're polling all the golf courses to put in pollinating gardens. And I was thinking that maybe we should join them here in the Niagara Peninsula, because we have a lot of golf courses. And let me finish this. It doesn't cost a lot of money for us if we do it right. We poll all, what do you call them? Garden centers. At the end of the year, the garden centers, they dump everything into their compost. Instead of them dumping it into the compost, we collect it, or somebody collects it and plants it in the golf courses. And it's not going to take up a lot of room. It's not like going to take up hectares and that. We have a beautiful one here, and it's working good. So that's what I'm proposing.
Okay. So if you want to charge me with that responsibility, Mickey, I know we've already crafted some incredible partnerships with respect to pollinator gardens. We just had an announcement yesterday, great partnership with the Penn Center, and they put in a pollinator garden now, and they've utilized MPCA staff and resources to make sure that the appropriate plants are there to attract those pollinators. So moving forward, if there's other partnerships that we can form with golf courses, to your point, absolutely we're going to be exploring those. And perhaps we'll just, move that forward as a staff direction to seek out those partnerships. So, we'll report back to you as far as what those. And
I'll continue growing and
exactly
donating what I can, as long as my health holds out.
Absolutely.
The other thing is, we got to be very vigilant, because Mr. Ford said he was going to release some of the conservation lands to the real estate for sale. Well, I don't think that's the way to go. And then he retracted the statement, but that's no guarantee that he won't push. And the guy before him, Hudak, said the same thing.
Okay, well, let's not get too political with under new business, but I appreciate the comments, Mickey. Okay.
Yeah. And the third thing is, there's ravioli, Italian sausage, and hot pepper, stuffed hot peppers in the kitchen. The only thing I ask is somebody serve it, because if everybody is getting it, it's going to get mushy.
Okay.
What's left over.
Okay.
And what's left over, I'd like it to go to the staff or back to the office.
Absolutely.
Or whoever wants to take some home.
Okay.
You don't want a ravioli that looks like breadcrumbs.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mickey. Thank you. Unbelievable. You know what, Mickey? We are so blessed and so fortunate to have you on this board. And, I mean that all sincerity.
Yeah.
And thank you for everything you do for this authority and certainly for Niagara. So keep doing what you do, okay? Thank you so much.
Well, I used to do this every Christmas when we had our Christmas party.
Yep.
But when it turned over to do it in the mornings and everything, we got lost. I got lost.
I get it.
So
seeing
this replaces last Christmas.
That's right. So seeing no other new business, as far as Chairman's remarks, I've really made my comments throughout the course of this meeting, so I'm going to pass on that. I'll turn to the CEO. If he has some CEO comments, then we'll open up to the floor for question or comments from the board. Mr. CEO?
Thank you, Chair. I do have a couple important ones that I want to bring forward. Want to recognize and acknowledge that Erica Navarro, one of our communication specialists, was nominated for a Young Business Professional Award through the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce, and we are very proud of her for that nomination, and congratulate her for that. I was going to tell you that Mickey has provided lunch. The staff participated in some team building and training this past week, and we have embraced the notion of the kindness advantage, and you're going to see our staff conducting 1,000 acts of kindness, additional acts of kindness over the next 6 weeks. That's why you see chocolate bars in front of you today as one of those indicators of kindness and sharing it forward. We did hold a welcome back barbecue for the campers at Long Beach on Saturday. There's another one taking place at Chippewa Creek this Saturday as well. I think that starts at 12:30. Board members are welcome to attend. We appreciated Member Beatty and Member Kaspersets came out. That was fantastic. The campers really enjoyed it. Fun Splash is now open at Binbrook. This is the new inflatable water park. The grand opening is this Saturday at 10 a.m. And again, any board members that are able to be there, encourage you to come out and see this new thing that's taking place at Binbrook. It is massive. Great work by the comms team to get it promoted on CHCH, but it is massive and it's going to be a huge hit at Binbrook. And then finally, as the chair was indicating, partnership with the Penn Center. There's going to be a pollinator garden planting this Friday at 10 a.m. at the Penn Center.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Member Shurton.
Great comments from the CEO. Unfortunately, I can't be there on Saturday to go to Binbrook, but I've heard good things about it, and Binbrook is very close to Haldeman. My only question was when I was out there, before kind of some of the plans were out there for that, we took a tour. There were some concerns about the infrastructure, and if there is a big uptake as far as people coming there, and which I do think they will, I'm assuming we have plans in place for, I know our washrooms are sort of, I wouldn't say at capacities, but we could get rushes of, 5,000 people some weekends there. So just maybe if you could just comment on that too, that would be great.
Mr. CEO?
Chair, through you, we are actually monitoring that situation very closely. You are correct that there are some key infrastructure investments required at Binbrook, particularly with respect to electrical and all of our water systems. Those are included and captured in the master plan. We're going to be asking that those works be undertaken through the next budget process. As you know, next year we'll also have treetop trekking coming on board, so that's going to be even more pressure on the system. In the interim, we are exploring possibilities of bringing in portable potties and things like that, portable washrooms that to alleviate some of the stress on that system and infrastructure.
Good to hear, and thanks for the update.
Okay. Member Beatty.
I'd also add to that we need a new entrance so that we can get people in faster. Like one of the problems with the mud event was they couldn't get into the park The entrance is restrictive. We need to rebuild that, hopefully next year.
Okay, good comments. Yep, Mr. CEO?
Yes, thank you for that comment as well. That also is captured in the Binbrook Master Plan. The designs have been done for it, the preliminary designs. As well, long-term, we're going to have to look, and part of our land acquisition strategy is we're going to have to acquire some more land out there, land of less ecological value, but that we can use for other purposes to support parking and infrastructure as required, because, yeah, that park's going to be well visited in the next couple of years.
Good. So I know we moved around a little bit in the agenda, but again, in order to triage and move those agenda items forward where we still had quorum. So thank you for that. Seeing no other new business or any other comments, I will ask a mover to adjourn. Moved by Member Shurton, second by Member Beatty. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you so much, Board.